Well, at the end of every single year, the business team puts together what we call the business review. That's taking you through the several stories that we covered for the year and also how we covered them, and bring some experts to reiterate the issues that we talked about or they themselves contributed to the discussions, and how going forward the country should be handling those particular issues. And then sometimes also they come in with their own perspectives into the following year, do some ratings of how they feel government or the private sector handled those particular issues. Today, I have with me several experts sitting at different parts of the country who will be contributing. I have Courage Buti, who is on Zoom, and then my own editor, Nixon Yabua. He's also sitting on Zoom. Right here with me in the studio is also Apia Domako from CAT International, and then also Dr. William Pepra. My name is Odilia Intiamwa, and we'll be taking a look at several issues, about 14 different issues. All these experts have decided to choose the subjects that they are comfortable with, and we'll just delve right away into it. Afishapa? Apia, so which were your top 4 issues for 2021?
Okay, so I think the deregulation policy on petroleum pricing, though it is not new, it's been there since 2014. And then also issues in Ghana's rising debt is also another issue that concerns me. And the e-levy, nobody can talk without mentioning the e-levy because it's going to affect everything. Then the SEC on Ponzi scheme, because it appears Ghanaians, we are still not learning. Because anytime a Ponzi scheme comes into Ghana, it still gets teaming
support.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, for me, the debt issue is a major impact.
Yeah, I told myself that there's no finance person who will not talk about the debt issue, so it will be highly subscribed. Yes. Okay.
And then I'm mostly interested in finding financial sustainability for farmers. Okay. So I'll be touching on the fertilizer issues, the shortage that happened, also the cocoa agreement between Ivory Coast and Ghana and this impact on the cocoa farmer. E-levy is also on the agenda, and then our CD performance. These are the areas, and then I'll tie the CD performance with the ECD, also the digital currency. So these were my top areas that I'll be looking at.
Okay. Let us go straight into the discussion whilst those on Zoom also prepare with their 4 most important topics. But I'd like to share a few statistics so that the conversation is put into proper perspective. So January, the issues relating to Ghana's rising debts was a big issue. As at September, debt to GDP statistics was 77.8%. The projection was that by the close of year, it was going to be around 83 to 81% as against GDP. So if we pegged it at 83.5, then the difference for the year between 2019 actually to 2021 was actually going to be about 20.95 billion Ghana cedis. Then issues relating to Ghana's ratings when it comes to the credit rating agencies. Moody's put us at B1 negative status, Fitch B, which is stable, S&P B plus, which is stable, and then Fitch at B plus but negative outlook. So how do we merge all of this and talk about the debt status and still look at the ordinary Ghanaian saying that how does this concern me?
Okay. So I will start by saying that we can't talk about debt status of the country without talking about our ability to be able to raise revenue, domestic revenue mobilization. If government were to be able to raise enough revenue, I think that our exposure to loans and debt would have gone down. Currently, our GDP to tax ratio is still around 13 to 14%. which is more like an outlier in the emerging economies. I've always been asking myself that we have a lot of money here in Ghana in terms of taxes that government can get, but our leaders have always been concerned about the low-hanging, the easier one, where they can get the money without having to do any cranial thinking in it. Because, for example, the e-levy is just easy, you can't escape it. Consumption taxes are so easy. But in most countries, taxes are more look at the individual level, the income level. But here, it's more like what? The consumption taxes. And consumption taxes, the key advantages of consumption taxes is that it makes no distinction between the rich and the poor. And we did a study some years ago and realized that the poor are highly exposed to indirect taxes, and it's kind of affecting them a lot. And we were even surprised in January this year when the new budget also added some 1% to the VAT as the COVID levy. Yeah. And I hope by the next 10 years or so, our VAT might even get to 30%, because anytime government needs money, they just
That's
go.
What they go to.
Yes, which is not the best. You go to most countries, sales tax, so US is average around 5 to 6%. But here you're looking at what, almost 20%. And if you go to hotels, for example, more than 22% that of you pay taxes on 22% of your cost. And so we need to do very well with regards to domestic revenue mobilization. And if we're able to do that, I think that Ghana government can get additional, $10 billion Ghana cedis annually from our domestic revenue mobilization, which we are not getting.
My issue has been that the current basis is moving towards the right direction. We didn't have any proper address system where to identify people. We're doing a national registration. That will be somewhat a way of locating people. We have our digital address system from the Ghana Post as also one way that we could easily identify people. When will all of this sort of sum up properly for us to say that we can drill down and target particular people? Because we can't keep going this easy route, which may probably not be helping the system as you suggest.
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of improvement with regards to digitization of the economy, and I'm very hopeful that by the end of this 2022, government, the dividend of the digitization will feed into the revenue that we get. But that also requires the political will of government. For example, we don't need this digitization to be able to price property.
The property rates.
Property rate. It has taken government many years. In the previous regime, we said that, look, if we were to prioritize a property rate, for example, the revenue from property rate can even finance, more than 2/3 of our education budget. But it appears that we are not interested in that, and they rather want to go to the lotto kiosks and take them, 2 cedis daily as a levy. And so you don't need the full digitization to start making. You need to start with what is available. But of course, now we know that your Ghana card is now becoming your unique identifier. So very soon you'll be there when GRA will write to you that, hey, appear, please. These are the information that we have about your expenditure and your income and your expenditure. Please, can you please file your tax and declare the source of this and show us the appropriate tax that you have paid? And that is, but we know that once those things we're able to implement it, for example, it was not going to be a witch hunting, but rather it's going to help the Ghana Revenue Authority to be able to follow us and allow Ghanaians to pay the right taxes. And then that also means that government will not have that excessive appetite in borrowing money. Now it appears that it's been an annual season that every year you have to go to the euro market to go and borrow. And we hope that once that comes, it will come and show the CD. And that thing, sometimes it's not necessarily the money that we need. We need the forex, and so we need to go and borrow euro, dollars, so that once it comes, we can have something to expand for our import.
You know, when you spoke about the property tax issues, I wanted us to add a bit more in relation to how government has approached this. We remember that it was mentioned in the 2022 budget that government will be working together with the MMDAs to find a proper common platform for the property rate administration to be effective so that the rates could be really collected. And so if we probably say that nothing has been done towards that, maybe enough has not been done, but is this not a good direction?
I mean, if you look through the budget statement every year from 2009 or so, we hear government finance ministers talking about property rates. Between 2009 and 2021, nothing has been done. Even the means of assessment is illogical. There's no uniformity. They don't converge. Every assembly is what they choose to do what they want. So you can have a house costing $100,000, paying the same as someone's house who is costing $20,000. And I think that the where they use indices, models, econometric process. So you look at the size of the house, the number of rooms, the number of toilets, the number of air conditioning, the swimming pool.
Proper valuation.
A proper valuation to be able to reach the assessment. And I think if we were to do that, if we were to implement that, and sometimes is it because we are not interested because the property tax, the rich, the political elite will start paying more taxes, and so we are not interested in that? I think that may be the reason why every government has seen it as a no-go area. Let's see and I think that we need to start tracking government actions and response on the property taxes, because seriously, you can't be taking 1.75 from my electronic transfer, a poor person who is trying to send 200 Ghana cedis to the mother in the village. And yet those living in the $2-3 million houses in Accra are paying less than 1,000 Ghana cedis on property.
Well, for me, I think one of the key areas we should also be looking at is this free education, free SHS whole thing, that, people who can really pay are actually not paying. All of that money could actually be used for other purposes. So we've actually sort of financing for rich people or people, the haves, who can't really afford some good education for their children. And we're paying this for them as well. This could be extra cash that we could use, for different things. But Doctor, you can come in with your perspective still on the debt.
Okay, so on the issue of the property rate, the other assumptions are that there's also a shortfall in accommodation for Ghanaians. And those who can build are the few, and they are the rich. So the fear is also that if you tax and go and tax more on the properties, it may deter people from also going to construction. So there is this dichotomy of how to approach the issue, especially with the valuation. That is why we find it very difficult as a country to go on that line. Because in Accra alone, they said about 2 million houses are needed. So these are some of the things that I'm sure that we as a country must find a way to approach it. And then on the ratings, on the debt ratings, Moody's, Fitch, and the rest looked at Ghana's our assessment and realized that as a country, we have liquidity challenges. And that is why they are rating us in that form, the negative B and then B, meaning that our bonds are speculative. That if you purchase Ghana's bond, Ghana may default. So if you are an investor, you have to be very careful. So on the other end, we noticed that Ghana as a country started increasing the interest to entice more people to buy, because we were in that need of the money anyway.
Yes.
So this is one of the reasons. We can say that it is not only on the issue of the revenue, but sometimes government must also watch on the policies and the promises they give to the citizens. Just one example, Agenda 111, which is a high capital intensive project. Should government have been able to do it in 2021, our debt situation would have been worse. But if you've noticed, though the government did a lot of sword cutting, but actual implementation has not been done. Probably the monies that have gone into it may be with the architectural design and other things. But the actual work, if you look at it, though it was in the budget that they will start 89 of them, complete them in 2021, not a single one has been completed. So, and these are major infrastructure issues. So it's really like government must also maybe slow down on two things: one, on the capital expenditure planning, and on its operational expenditures. Because if the revenues you are not going up, the next option is for you to cut down your expenditure, normal operational expenditure, and then the capital expenditure.
But usually this expenditure goes into the payments of debts, it goes into the payments of government workers. Most of them go into these areas. I remember one of the years, the capital expenditure was less than 10 billion Ghana cedis.
1%.
Exactly.
1%.
And what can you do with that? How can you really survive as a country? I really want you to think about some good solutions that government can, adapt quickly, because it looks like we're in a dire situation.
So first, with the first one, which is the salaries, we have to do an audit and CHR audit and see that as a country, whether the 700,000 workers we have on our payroll, are we getting the actual output? If we compare the work output as to the amount that we are spending, is it commensurate? In the budget, 2021, government put there they were going to spend 25 billion. As at reading the budget in November, they have spent 35 billion. With no additional increments, probably a few increase in the numbers in terms of employment. But then the amount had really went up. I mean, the people have been looking at the presidency. Probably they have to check the numbers there. There's an issue of education. Though a lot of people must be employed to help the education also, we have to also check health also. And in the health area, remember that during COVID, government gave them some tax rebates and also some allowances.
The health workers.
Health workers. And so all these things also had an impact on the payroll, probably which were not planned during the year. So these are some of the major challenges. And then on the infrastructure aspect, the procurement processes must be looked at, especially when it comes to sole sourcing. Because it's one area that we have seen, based on some documentaries that Joy you did, came out that some contracts, were done and the values were not accurate. And now we are also hearing that people in road sectors, they have asked them to even bring the certificates. Because they changed the model of payment, we have seen that over 2,000 of the certificates people cannot bring them in. So it means that in the past, there were a lot of issues when it comes to expenditures, payments, and the rest, which were affecting our debt, our cash flow situation in the country. So it's something that we can do.
Hold your guns right there. We have about 3 people on Zoom. If we have Nixon Yeboah, who's an editor with the Joy Business team, he should share with us his 4 key areas. And if the debts is part of it, Nixon, you can go straight ahead to talk about what your thoughts are, how you have observed from January to December issues relating to debt. I think there's in a single month that we do not have a report on the debts. And then Karijmate is an economist. He works with Data Bank. He will also share his perspectives. And then I have some telecoms expert. He was with the Telecoms Chamber, now the director of Africa Digital Economic Forum, Derek Lai. If you also chose your 3 big topics, please let us know. So Nixon first.
Well, thank you very much, Odile. I'm sure you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Hello? Okay, so basically, I would look at the economy vis-a-vis the debt issue. After the impact of COVID-19, we've seen some level of recovery in the Ghanaian economy, but the concern has been the fiscals and the financing. That has been a major issue, and I'm sure our guests have spoken much about it, but I'll also talk briefly about that. The other issue that I think most people are have not really looked at critically is the stock market. The stock market has been outstanding this year. We've seen impressive outcomes, brilliant returns, year-to-date returns of equities listed on the market. And I have been an advocate for patient capital, so I always encourage businesses, even the government, to look at offloading some of its shares in some public companies that are not doing well on the market. So these are the 2 major issues. We can also not talk about business review without talking about the CD. People have spoken.
Nixon, we will come back to the CD. I wanted you to share your thoughts on the debt. Then we come back to other topics when we're looking at you. Are you done with conversation on debts?
No, I haven't, because that is a very critical issue. I always analyze it from the balance sheet perspective. If you are having a weaker balance sheet, as we all know, the country has witnessed significant debt on its books. We must look at it critically. The central bank governor consistently have spoken about it. So it's high time the country takes very critical decision to ensure that we bounce back in terms of reducing our fiscal deficit, i.e. Having a large gap between revenue and expenditure. So therefore, going forward, cost management, value for money projects should be the priority. We must do more to also improve upon our revenue. And I would again bring in e-levy. In actual fact, e-levy is the biggest issue this year, because as we speak, we haven't concluded the issue about e-levy, and I'm hopeful that there will be a level of consensus between the majority and the minority for us to move on, in the sense that we need revenue, even though there are some arguments that is somehow a lazy way of raising revenue, but we should try as much as possible to come to a level of consensus, and that is very critical. The majority and the minority need to find a solution. Perhaps what we need to do going forward is to reduce the rate of the e-levy. 1.75% is on the high side. We attended a couple of meetings by research institutions and think tanks, and they all urge the government to reduce the rate. 1% will be favorable, because there are still some charges that will come from
the telecom side
that administer mobile money. So e-levy is something that is dear to my heart. Why am I saying to the fiscal deficit? And that is very critical. However, cost management and value for money projects should be the hallmark going forward into 2022, because as we speak, we do not have money, and it creates some level of risk in the economy. International investors perceive the Ghanaian economy as not too strong. Therefore, they are demanding higher yield on their investments through bonds that they have subscribed in this country. So that is what matters most. We need to see some level of improvement in the fiscal economy going forward, and that is where to go. Revenue is critical. However, certain revenue measures must be looked at critically. That is why some organizations, some individuals, economists, analysts have pleaded with government to look at the rate of the e-levy. If we are able to bring it down, fine. We need it because it will definitely help us to show up our revenue. within the short term.
Yeah.
However, government must be prudent in spending going forward.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nixon. We will come to all the topics that you chose. If Courage is on, and Courage, if your interest is in the area of debts, please go straight ahead to give us your perspectives relating to the high debts that we currently find ourselves in. As at September, we were standing at some 341.8 billion Ghana cedis, with domestic debts currently at 178.1 billion as at in September, and the ones coming from foreign sources 173.9 billion as at July. So these are the current status that we have. Courage Mate, are you on? Okay. Hello, Derek. Since we are connecting e-levy to revenue sources, before you come in, Derek, with your perspectives on e-levy, I'll quickly say that 1 billion, a little over 1 billion, is what this e-levy is supposed to be contributing. Now, the question is, how much of the whole is this going to plug anyway?
Okay, so from the finance minister, 7 billion is what they intend to raise to 2022.
Yeah, that my figure is in dollars.
In dollars, okay, yes. So in my in cedis. So this figure of 7 billion cedis is based on 1.75% on the transaction value. The problem is with that mode of computation, the transaction value. In economics, there's something we call money circulation. So if you tax on the transaction, it means that for every movement of funds through electronic means, and let's be careful, now in the banking sector, every single transaction is done electronically. So what it means is that every single transaction in the banking sector, we are going to be charged, your money is going to, you are going to suffer a 1.75%. So if I pay you, you suffer 1 point on the face value. If you also give to somebody on the face, by the time we end up, the money will be sitting with, everybody's money will be sitting with government. So that is where the problem is. And I have been saying that we should move that 1.75 from the transaction value and then charge VAT on the service fee. I did a simple computation with the same 500 billion, and you get the same 7 billion we want. If you charge, because if you take mobile money, 500 billion, and they charge service fee up to 10 CD per transaction, so it will give you 50 billion transactions. Multiply that one by, if it's VAT, 12.75 alone, you get that. And in that case, I am sure that it is when I use the service, that is when I pay. But you don't tax me when I'm just moving my money from one point to the other. And when the government goes on the point of the 12.5 VAT charge, it's simple. You just bringing in that, because now currently is exempted, bringing that one in, and you solve the problem. Because if you don't, the fight that is happening in Parliament is on that line, the transaction money. Assuming you are paying somebody 100 billion for a transaction, and you are supposed to pay 1.75, and you don't have that, it means that you cannot pay that person. But if the service fee of transferring that money is, say, 200 Ghana cedis, and you are paying 12.5%, that one, you see, you save. But if you do go on that line, by the time you realize, on the using the money in circulation principle in macroeconomics, everybody's money will end up going to sitting with the government. That is where the problem is.
Derek, if you're on, you were working, I'm sure, a few months ago with the chamber, the telecoms chamber, and so you have been thick in this whole discussion, and you know exactly where it's getting to. My bit of reading that I have done concerning Uganda, they had to probably they had to backtrack on the figures, and currently they're doing some 0.5. But even that, the whole thought that we want to be able to improve digital penetration, how people use digital sources, and the current decision, many have said that it is actually going to affect our digital drive. What are your thoughts?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Super. So thanks for having me into the conversation. And I think it's a very interesting conversation we are having. And I'll probably just tie into your question by saying that listening to the just ended speaker and the one that spoke before him, for me, I'm completely against the principle of taxing mobile money there's so many reasons. And a couple of them is the fact that when government came into power, government spoke very heavily about the VAT on the traditional banking services and called it a nuisance tax. And traditional banking, as we know, is really the preserve of the middle and the upper class. And so one will be asking the question, why do you want to play back that same scenario now into the informal side? And so then people usually say government wants to widen the tax net, government wants to increase revenue. And I've also argued a lot of times that you could be fetching water into a basket. The major issue for me is the fact that money moves for different purposes. So when you have a blanket tax or you have a blanket rate of tax on the movement of money, it could end up being a disincentive, or it could limitate the reason why people use cash, or basically the reason why people use digital means of basically transacting or doing payments. Now, for considering where government came from, I have also argued that if you look at the background upon which this is built, that 500 billion that keeps being mentioned, the question has been 500 billion of what exact transactions? For anybody that has worked within the mobile money space, you've done operationalizing of mobile money, the mobile money business, or you've done just a study on the whole mobile money project, you understand that close to about 55% of the transactions are not taxable transactions, even for liquidity purposes, money between agents, money that moves between agents, even just for liquidity management purposes. These are monies that even the telcos don't earn revenue from. So when you look at these count of transactions, or basically the value or the count of these transactions, and you begin to assume or permute rates against them, you could be basically walking in a circle. So for starters, I have said that the $1 billion or the 6.9 billion expected revenue is not practicable. It's not practicable. It's not practicable for a number of reasons, because up until now, I keep saying that there has been no high-level policy paper or simulation done or modeling that has been done to be able to enable us have a conversation. I left the chamber in October. I started the chamber. I started the chamber, so I worked in the chamber for 10 years. And before then, I worked with the telco. And so the mobile money business is quite dear to our hearts. And for me, I even said last year, without this e-levy, government made about 250 million CDs from mobile money. And this 250 million CDs was made from corporation taxes as we know them, and then also withholding taxes, which are coming from commissions that are paid to agents and suppliers and the likes. So one would ask, if government wants to be able to touch a bit more into the pie, for me, the real value of mobile money is the money that people carry on their wallets. So across board, it's about 8-point-something billion CDs. The money that moves that is being counted as count of transaction can be very, very, it can be misinforming, which is the fact that if I give you 10 CDs right now and you give me back 10 CDs, those are 2 transactions. The value is 20 CDs. But then it could be the same 10 CDs that we are moving on the same platform. That's why I'm quite cautious, or I'm worried when we basically build this e-levy foundation on basically money that has not been earned by anybody, but rather a count of transactions within the sector or the service. Now, when you come to even the importance of the sector or the importance of the service. We have said countless times, this is a sector that basically employs close to about 500,000 people. Government's main flagship project, which was NAPO, couldn't even do 100,000. So this is a very important sector. For the want of a better, I just want to situate the point that it's a very important sector and it requires a lot more support, really, because the livelihoods or the jobs that are being created, you rarely would have any sector or any service that's going to provide you those amount of jobs. So from the economic side or in and of itself, it's basically what does the sector do or what does it do really today? In terms of government's own digitization plans, how does the sector basically support for effective monetary policy transmission? Today, you're able to see the movement of money between the informal sector. This is a service that is trusted by the butler or the garden boy, as well as the board chairman. So it's a very, very sensitive sector to play in, and it's quite sad that we've reached a point of no consensus. And for me, it's not about no consensus, but it's really a point about the whole logic behind the policy. And so we talked about, you mentioned Uganda. There was Uganda, there was Congo, there was Malawi, and then I think there was also, Ivory Coast. Kenya. I think Kenya also tried something like that. But between the four places, Uganda and Congo came with 1%. Nobody has gone above 1% before. And after 6 months of implementation, Uganda and Congo had to backtrack to 5%, to 0.5%, half of 1%. Ivory Coast had to re-look at the whole policy and turn it into a profit tax. So basically, what the telcos earn, they pay some extra from there for government to basically take on as revenue. And then I think for Malawi, they completely abolished the policy. I think in Tanzania currently, there's even a court case ongoing because they wanted to do something similar. We can all understand governments are stressed on the back of the COVID, on the back of the whole global outlook of the way the global economy is looking, like supply chain crunches here and there. And truly speaking, government needs a lot of money. But we've also talked about, and one of the speakers said rightly, the one on my partner on Zoom said rightly, that we cannot talk about revenue without discussing expenditure. And I've argued a lot of times that when it comes to the amenities, the most important things we need, like roads, like water, like electricity, we are going to borrow money. But when it comes to the wants, basically, for the want of a better word, the things that are not too important to the citizenry, like buying a new airliner for the presidency, we have the money, and so it's important that we weigh our means of spending as against the way we basically manage our budget. Because I will not have a party this afternoon if I don't have the money. So I won't have it and say I'm having it because I need to have it or I want to have it. So it's the same way that you want to expect that government will basically tackle money that comes into its kitty as against how it basically expends these finances. But also on the e-levy, for me, the couple of things that I think also has not been put into the conversation, or hasn't been weighed within the conversation, is the impact that it will have on the business. Now, there's a reason why when COVID came in, 0 to 100 was already going free. It's not e-levy that started talking 0 to 100 free. On the back of the COVID, 0 to 100 was given us free by almost all the operators. There's a reason why Vodafone Cash is running P2P for free. There's a reason behind it. There's a reason why after 10 cedis, transactions are capped at 10 cedis. And when you go 1,005, it's 10. When you go 2,000, it's 10. When you go 5,000, it's 10. All these inherent business models are there for a reason. And it's important that taxes in and of themselves need to be equitable and need to be able to factor in the inherent business models within where the taxes are coming into. And so you ask yourself a question. If I'm a service provider today, I've invested in people, I've invested in infrastructure, I'm invested in marketing, I'm invested in branding, I'm investing in technology, I'm investing in overheads, I'm investing in everything related to the service. And then I charge 1% and I keep in all these business models. Then government says that I'm coming to take 1.75%. And the question I keep asking up until this point, which I'm looking for an answer, is what have you invested into the service to be able to identify that 1.75 is what you should be charging? Because I believe strongly that even if we had to get to a place of compromise where government says they want something badly, for me, I've already said, on starting my submission, I spoke about the fact that government made 215 million from the service last year. Now, the question really can be, can government itself have a conversation with the operators to be able to see how we can tap into their 1% structure? And beyond there, if there was a bit of a deal, maybe they got a 0.2, they could explore another maybe 0.2, so maybe it could even become 1.2 total. Because you see, when you go beyond the price elasticity of demand when it comes to these services are very dear to the heart of the consumers, that any little switch in pricing can basically cause disaffection and basically dip usage. So even if you study the likes of Uganda, what happened, and the reason why Uganda and Congo had to move from 1% to 0.5% is the fact that a couple of things will happen. People will slow down usage. And when people slow down usage, agents will not have businesses to do. So agents will shut down. When that happens, you're also going to have a situation where operators are going to stop investing into the service. Operators are going to stop investing into the service. And then also, with all this outlook, and when you get to that point, basically what's going to definitely happen is the fact that then there's no real reason for which you're going to even get that 7 billion. That's why I said that the 7 billion expected revenue is quite very ambitious and quite unachievable from where I sit. So yes, we might have to get to the point of compromise, but it's important that government itself, if it's coming up with a very sensitive tax policy of this nature, should be able to consult and do the work required to be able to get buy-in before it heads to Parliament, but not go to Parliament and then now we're having to do consultations. That's a seemingly interesting analogy, like putting the cart before the horse. So we are at a point where currently we're now having to rethink the whole policy, but we've already been to Parliament to go and pass it as a law. And when you get to that point, from a public policy perspective, you're basically going to have dissatisfaction even amongst the stakeholders that you are required to work with, because there's an issue of trust, which have obviously dipped at this point. Thank you.
Very much, Derek. I spoke with Dr. Kofi Klugeson about a week ago concerning this e-levy issue, and we all know that Dr. Klugeson has been in this industry, actually the pioneer of private sector telephony, and he had these perspectives to share.
I think we need in Ghana right now is that the Minister of Finance and the GIPC, to lead so that we have dialogue. The closer we go from AGI was local content. So the oil and gas industry, so they start hiring Ghanaians from abroad, so and so. But we need to close that gap by getting 30%. So all these young people, Andrew Pay and all of them, they should say that we have funded our company, Haftel and all of them, that they own, as Ghanaians, they own 30% of that company. In the US, it's 35, UK, China. That is the only missing link right now. South Africa have done it. So you see the Black Empowerment, Cyril Ramaphosa Group, they created the Black Empowerment. They own MTN, they own DSTV. Most of the companies, not by in the Black South Africans. They will also, Link while you do the same thing. So we need to be very bold enough to use this e-levy. We should not. It's a very good policy, but we shouldn't be talking about that. We need to create, otherwise nothing will happen. Assuming the thing was not created, are we saying that we cannot run Ghana? Let's have patience. It's only $1 billion.
Okay, so Mr. Apiadamako, my question still remains. How much of a hole is this going to plug in any way? Are these the only ways of reaching the informal sector? Looked like digitization had actually brought these people under a certain umbrella, which we feel that we can now target. But shouldn't we be looking at this from different perspectives? Will this solve all our problems?
Yeah, thank you very much, Odilia. Like Barnabas, Derek said, the expected amount over 7 billion Ghana cedis. I mean, at the end of the day, we will not even get to half of it because of what elasticity of demand. Once you kind of bring this, people will find a way of what transferring money. Even sometimes people, instead of transferring money electronically, they may want to go and withdraw the money physically. That means that the DOD may also have to print more money. Currently, the volume of circulation has even gone down because the system has understood the need for electronic transfer. Yeah. And so I think we are missing the big picture. First, there was no consultation, and if government has even engaged academia, and sometimes it saddens me that Ghana, we have the best brains here, but then anytime policies are coming, you don't even see the government engaging. If the e-levy had not even backfired, most of these autopsies would not have even happened. I mean, I'm calling this engagement as autopsy engagement. A policy implementation requires what consultation, weighing the options, look at the best, and then taking the best in terms of what cost on the economy and the best in terms of what acceptance by the people. But then you come up with 1.75, Parliament decides not to even approve it in the first way. Later it's approved, but still there's still some hurdles that we need to actually go through. I think if government had even engaged academia, had engaged the private sector, Ghanaians, I think that people would have come to alternative source of raising revenue without necessarily having to touch the golden cow of the electronic transaction.
Okay, so,
Doctor, you want to quickly close the chapter on
that chapter one. What I noticed that government wants to do is to find money from informal sector. The minister's presentation, he noted that 2.3 million Ghanaians are the only few people and companies put together paying taxes.
Yeah.
On the analysis on
About
that
30%.
2.3%, only 1.3% of the citizenry in Ashanti region, Eastern region, and Western region are paying taxes. The rest are from Greater Accra region. And so we all know that in Ghana too, the informal business is basically in Ashanti region and the three regions that we have mentioned that has contributing 1.3% of national taxes. So if you want to forgo e-levy and still find a way to get the revenue, we need to deploy men to go to these regions to increase the numbers. I normally use some statistics. So if you look at the population census we did, Greater Accra is almost 3.4 million. Ashanti region almost 3.2 million. Mm-hmm. So if you take Greater Accra region and about 80% of the citizens in Greater Accra are the ones paying the taxes, and you only have Ashanti region with almost similar population, but you are getting less than 1% paying taxes from that region. It means that there's a problem. And that is where we have the informal business. So can we deploy men, go to these regions? We will get more than the 7 billion we are fighting over in Parliament. Because that is where the issues are. Go to the central market. Let's see what can we do, what can we help the people there so that they will be able to understand the need to pay the taxes and pay it well. We know the gold business, this galamsey business, and we are talking about majority of them happens. We know the kind of money that moves in these three regions. But the data is showing that they are not paying the taxes, the required taxes. So if we can pause probably on e-levy and say, let's try our hands on how we deploy men to go to these regions to see if we increase it even to, say, 10%. In 2022, what will be the impact in the revenue generation? It will help. Then we allow the system to grow. I wanted to tie this one to the e-cash. What this simply means is that the e-cash policy will fail because that is electronic,
including the ECD.
ECD. That is electronic transaction. And it will come back as you noted that now our cost of printing money has reduced. It is going to go up because I'm not going to go to ECD. Mm-hmm. Because if I have ECD, I have to use it electronically. Yeah. And I'll be charged 1.75.
Yes.
So I'd rather go for my fiat currency, my paper currency. So we have to situate this one very well. And then
we will definitely draw the ECD into the conversation. I think Derek wants to quickly make a point so that he can leave.
Okay.
Hi, Derek. If you're still there, please share your perspectives then.
Thanks a lot. Thanks to Doc and my friend Mr. Adomako as well. Just to say that I agree with the last point that he just made, and the fact that he talks about even the contribution of revenue from a very major region like Ashanti region. It means that the point is rightly clear that it means that there's a lot of work that needs to be done with regards to bringing certain businesses and certain people within the tax-paying bracket. Now, it's important that we say that you cannot use a direct tax to fix an indirect tax problem. More importantly, when we say people don't pay taxes and they're in the informal economy, it can be a bit tricky, because if I am in the informal economy and I buy carnation milk or I buy petrol, I've paid some level of tax. So it can be very tricky. However, I'm just going to say a couple of things. Like last year, the Ministry of Finance launched 3 policy documents, which was the National Financial Inclusion and Development Strategy document. They launched the Digital Financial Services Policy, and then they also launched the Cash Light Roadmap. And these policies were basically launched to speed up financial inclusion and digital payments to transform our economy. Now, these 3 policies in and of themselves, there's no part of the policy that says that we should tax mobile money or we should tax digital transactions. And that basically would have been in variance with the expectations of how we want to grow in the next, let's say, 2 to 5 years as a country. Ghana has been tagged the fastest growing mobile money market last year by Bloomberg. And there's so much work that has gone into us reaching that level. And taxing of mobile money has never been on the table any day. It has never been on the table any time. Nobody has actually even thought about it. That's why I'm saying that even getting the stakeholders together to reach that point would have been a problem. And that's why obviously government went to the easy route of just going to announce it. And we've all seen the backlash that it has come with. The final point for me is that considering the work that needs to be done by the revenue authority, today we're saying that about, let's say, 200 and something thousand people pay taxes out of a population of about, let's say, close to 30 million people or 30 million people. Now, if today we're even able to say that we want to ignite one of the existing tax policies which has gone mundane, example, property taxes. If we want to do property taxes today and say that every property should even pay 15 cedis for a standard 2-bedroom house, maybe 3-bedroom house, maybe 20 cedis. Let's reduce it from like the typical 100 cedis and maybe 120 and 150 when they come to your homes, because the process of collecting even comes with a cost. So let's say we're even going with, let's say, 10 cedis for even every property in the whole country. GRA does not have the power or does not have the gravitas to be able to collect that taxes from even 10 million of the citizens. It will be a nightmare. So you need tools like mobile money to facilitate that kind of level of granular payment or granular support that it would basically provide the revenue authority to be able to receive that tax, because all of us cannot troop into GRA's office. Even when you look at SIM registration, we have up to March, and already every day there's a queue, so people are not going. So that's the reason why things like mobile money exist, to facilitate payment within the informal economy. So when we are using it for G2P payments like LEAP payments to older people and people within those brackets, and that we used to support people in those brackets, we can also leverage mobile money to support the payment of taxes, so that when people know that they have to pay maybe 10 cedis for property taxes or property rate, and then they know that we have Ghana Post GPS, and we can be able to enhance the technology so that we can see which house has paid and which house has not paid, people will pay. And when it is low, people will even have a reason to even pay it. And we can be able to imagine collecting 10 cedis from 10 million homes every year. That's even more than the e-levy we are talking about here. So that would be my suggestion. That was just my add-on from where Doc came on. Thank you very much.
I think, Odilia, I have a point
To
to make.
you, e-levy should be cancelled totally. We should never get there.
Well, to me, it shouldn't be on the table. But if it has to be on the table, I think that there are other ways to look at it. And I've talked about the fact that government can basically go beyond this 215 it got last year, which I'm saying that it could get more even this year. When it could get a bit more this year when the tax reports are done. But for me, the point is that without necessarily tweaking the business model and tweaking the price rates to basically cause a disaffection between the stakeholders that use it. It's important that government works closely with the service providers to be able to reach a real point of compromise. Today, the service providers are saying that they want to give 30%, or I think 25 or 30% of their 1%. They want to give it up to be able to support the process. That's money that government could have tapped into, and without necessarily changing the existing business model and causing any brouhaha like we're facing currently. Thanks.
Derek, you wanted to make a point.
I think, as we've always been saying, that government has been very, very lazy in capital letters, and I say it without any apology, because we know where the money is. Go to Kumasi, where I come from. Government is not doing a show when it comes to tax revenue from there, and instead of deploying a workable solution to go for where the money is, now they are coming to tax the burden the people are already paying taxes. Let me give you this example. In the construction sector, about 92% of construction sector work goes on the informal sector. If you are building a house, you get the mason, electricians, you pay them so huge in terms of labor, and yet they don't pay taxes. You and I who sit here and wear tie, those people in the construction, the informal sector, they are earning more than people wearing taxes. In the formal sector.
Not to cut you, but I think that this has been a quick fix because this is the one way of truly identifying people and tracking people down. Now, with this example that you gave, as in people doing their personal construction, there isn't any current solution as to how to track them down.
Odelia,
so if government, this is a quick fix.
No,
the government has to spend, and if spending has to be done, revenue has to be collected one way or the other.
In 2018 budget, I, Apia Kusi Adomakon, submitted a proposal to the Ministry of Finance with regards to how to tax the informal construction industry. That thing was not taken upon because maybe it may be a rocket science for government. Some countries are doing it.
Maybe once you're on radio and TV, you can share a few of what you sent.
Yeah, so the strategy is this. If you want to build a house, you submit your building plan to the assembly. They look at it based upon data that look, the carpentry work is going to cost this amount, the mason work is going to cost this amount. Yes, so right from the beginning, we know that the labor cost is going to be this, so we expect you, let's say 3,000 cedis from the construction. And then before you go and get your permit, you go to the GRA. GRA then gives you a folder, so that anybody that you hire to come and work there, you write, Kwajo Menu came today, you pay him 200 Ghana cedis as a labor. The tax that you hold is, let's say, 20 cedis. So at the end of the month, you are required to go and pay the money to the GRA. So if you finish building your house, and then GRA come to audit your book, and you see that you are not compliant, then they will surcharge you all the taxes. This is not big
rocket science.
It's not rocket science. We have the NABCO, and NABCO could be deployed to do this. And look, if we were to do this, I tell you that we can get a lot of revenue, because always we talk about informal sector. They are not God that we can't touch them. They are touchable people. We know them. We don't say we don't know the informal sectors. Look, if you want to build a house, you don't take your burden to the mainstream construction companies, the concerts, the Mechilachis, and those kind of things. You go to the informal sector. And even the politicians, they go to the informal sector. They know where they are. And so why are we scared in taxing them? There are so many money going on that government is not willing to tax. And yet the quick fix, the low-hanging, the easy approach is what they are doing. We don't build a nation like this. You go to Europe and America, they took tough decisions at the beginning to implement certain things, and which has come to stay. And if we are not willing to take tough decisions to build a better Ghana for us, we'll always be deceiving ourselves.
Thank you very much, Mr. Apia Adomako, Dr. William Pepera from the Valley View University. Apia Adomako is with CAT International. Nixon Yeboah is on Zoom. Nixon is with Joy Business. And then, of course, Derek has the private consultancy. We're taking a quick break. We're doing the business review here at Joy News and also live on Joy 99.7 FM. We will be right back after these messages. Well, so Ghana, together with Nigeria, Bahamas, and about 110 countries globally, have decided to do the central bank digital currency, for which Ghana piloted or started off with the ECD. Many have said that that is also going to be taxed by February if the e-levy goes through. Then we also had Twitter coming to Ghana, which was one interesting conversation that also went on in this year, 2021. You still want us to remain a bit on the digital conversation and all the things that were spoken about in this year. And then Nixon, you're also on. These are the next issues we're talking about relating to the ECD, Twitter in Ghana. So who wants to go first?
Let me first start on Twitter in Ghana. Twitter coming to Ghana has really been a very important element. It's affirmed Ghana as a country with open internet service, a country that we allowed freedom of speech. Also, the coming in of AFTA, where it means that trade goes with communication, and to be able to know where goods and maybe cheaper goods are, you need a medium of communication. So Twitter establishing an office in Ghana, points to the country that currently we are doing something better when it comes to the electronic space. Probably that's where tax is following that area. So it's a plus for having Twitter in Ghana. With the ECD, we know that it costs the country a lot of money to print the currency we use. And the ECD is also to come in to solve this particular problem. Also, the world is going to, probably we want to mention, a cryptocurrency era, and we don't want to be left behind. So we need to come with our own form of digital currency so that Ghana will also take advantage. And this is also going to stabilize our economy in terms of monetary flows in the system. So it's coming at the right time. But the fear is that it's also electronic transaction.
Yes.
So we don't know if the government will be able to achieve this issue of electronic ECD or electronic money being used by Ghanaians.
I want us to box this in, and then probably complete on this. So, for example, preparations are being made by the Ghana Revenue Authority to fully automate all its platforms for collection of taxes. The authority believes that it should also help in improving tax compliance amongst businesses in the country. If this also goes digital, would you be taxed for paying taxes?
I mean, the key word, if you look at the budget, is all electronic transactions. So the moment you have a financial, monetary value attached to that transaction, that if it's on the electronic, if it's on the transaction, it is going to be taxed.
Interesting.
So this is where government must come clear in the bill,
Yes.
and make sure that you exempt some form of payment from individuals to government institutions. In the bill, what they only put there was that transactions between government entities to individuals or corporations are exempted, but not from individuals entities to government. Yes. So that is where we need to make sure that, because if not, I also walk to GRA's office physically and go and pay.
And which is not allowed nowadays, because nowadays you can't go to GRA office to go and make payment. You have to go to the bank. And maybe most companies can also do the payment from online banking portal.
The fear is that if I
It's
take,
digital
if I take,
Digital
I
payment.
take my previous company, I will not use my current company. My previous company, where we were paying withholding tax alone, we could pay close to, say, at a time, about 20,000 Ghana cedis in a month. And I'm going to do it electronically and have to pay additionally 1.75.
as tax.
Yes, taxes.
Mr. Nixon is online. Nixon, join us with your thoughts and perspectives so that we can close the chapter on digital currency plus e-levy taxes and then move on to other pressing issues. Well, if Nixon is not there, we can move to your next picks.
So for me, for my next pick, I mostly focus on financial sustainability for farmers. That is where I wrote my dissertation on, especially with cocoa farming.
Yeah, and that ties into the fact that fertilizer prices were going really up in the year 2021, actually still going up in the year 2021. I had a farmer call me to say, I want to buy 800 bags of fertilizer. I'm not getting it. So I connected him to a manufacturer in the country, and the prices they were mentioning at the time was 185 Ghana cedis per bag. And he said, no, Odilia, I'll have to wait till the prices go down. But from my readings on international platforms like Bloomberg says that this is going to linger on for some time.
I mean, the two main components or ingredients that are used for the fertilizer, the nitrogen and phosphorus, they have been becoming scarce. Scarcity is causing that to happen. So the manufacturers are not getting these two ingredients to manufacture the product. And also, there is also a global demand for the products, for some products, especially in the US, like for corn, wheat. In the international market, fertilizers are used mostly on corn and wheat and soya beans. And the US market is also booming. People need the corn. Now it's not only for eating, but for other beer and other things. So that demand is also affecting like country like Ghana to be able to go there and get the market. So all the manufacturers are now, some of the companies are booked for the whole year. Whatever they produce, they are selling it to the American market. So that is the reason why we are seeing that this is really impacting us. So as a country, we had a plan to do our own fertilizer factory in Ghana, but we don't know what happened. All of a sudden, we stopped. So if we would have established that factory, by now, we'll be producing more in the country. I don't know, but we stopped. So this is where we find ourselves. And also, during the year, remember that there was also shortage for maize. And the poultry farmers really complained.
Very much.
And so now you know that the crate of egg is getting to 30 Ghana cedis. Around 25, thereabout. So and egg is something that we all eat every day. So if it's going to be like that, we are going to suffer. So as a country, we have to have a plan. What can we do? I know that there's also a plan to stop the exporting some maize to our neighboring countries so that we'll be able to use them to feed the poultry farmers. So these are some of the things that I think that we need to do as a country. But the year has been very challenging for farmers.
How is this, for you looking forward, going to affect food security?
It's a major challenge because, one, the weather has not been favorable to us. And two, we are not getting the fertilizers to also help boost the production. So if we don't take care in 2022 and don't plan very well, we may have some famine in 2022. So that is where we as a country...
We have over 60 storage facilities that were recently handed. The buffer stock has some, and some other institutions have some. Is that good enough? Should we now probably be looking at really improving on our storage, system so that we sort of use that as a real buffer?
The problem is the production. The production is not, we are not able to produce to meet the needs. We currently, as a country, are importing yellow corn. So if you are importing yellow corn, what are you going to put in your warehouse? Everything that is produced is consumed. Mm-hmm. So we either have to increase the production. I was hoping that the government agenda for
planting for food and jobs.
Yeah. We should have strengthened that angle, but if you look at the budget, the amount of money allocated there was not even able to purchase the fertilizers for the year. They didn't get their full budget for 2021. So going to 2022, so that is a challenge we are going to find ourselves. When it comes to cocoa in the year 2021, government agreement with Ivory Coast helped us to get about $400 additional price to the metric ton. But unfortunately, after we agreed with Ivory Coast, in somewhere in August, Ivory Coast has reduced their price by 9%. So though we have this agreement with our brothers Ivory Coast, but the market is forcing them to reduce by 9%. Why? Because they want the international market to come to them and buy.
Yeah.
Whilst Ghana, we are still maintaining our price in the agreement.
And that actually promotes some level of smuggling.
Yeah. A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. We remember the episode by Anas, the cocoa smuggling issue. So these are the challenges we are facing. It's not easy. I mean, if you are the government, you need to take tough measures. But you'll be surprised. In my study about cocoa farmers averagely by cocoa initiative says that we get less than $1 if you're a cocoa farmer. So we were hoping that this $400 in addition will come and increase what the cocoa farmer gets. But I term something called political initiatives. All the monies that go into cocoa farmer, only small goes to the farmer directly.
Finally. Well, you know that Cocoa Board, together with SNIT, have put together a pension scheme which is supposed to roll out for the farmers. And so for me, that's very critical, that when the farmer has contributed so much to the development of the economy, when they retire or when they completely are unable to go to the farm, they should be able to have a little bit sitting somewhere. That should help them to get by. You want to make any contribution in relation to the agric topics?
Yes, I think the SNIT pension for cocoa farmers, I think, is even belated. I think about 15 years ago, I wrote a paper and submitted to the Ministry of Finance and Cocoa Board. I'm happy that for more than 15 years later, government has seen the need to roll it out for cocoa farmers. The agric sector is the backbone of our economy. Anytime that the agric sector does well, you see how food, even the cost of buying food goes down. So we have more disposable income. And government policies in the sector, like the planting for food and job, we've seen it, doing some level of impact in the sector. But that is a project, and a project has its start and its end period. How do we ensure that food production is all year, all season? And that is what we need to be looking at. Unfortunately, we live in Ghana here, especially if you live in Accra, you spend more money on food than even on accommodation. The developing countries should not be doing that. There are some level of cartels in the food supply chain, and until we're able to dismantle the cartels, I think food prices will never go down in this country. And I would like to tie this issue of the cartels with the OMCs and also the sachet.
It's actually my favorite subject for 2021, yes. How GOIL withdrew and then the deregulation and fuel prices.
Yes. And also the sachet water. Just last week or so, we read that the sachet water producers have agreed that
40 pesos
for I think this is, anti-competitive in the market, because the individual businesses have determined their own cost of operation. For example, a particular brand can decide to sell it for, let's say, 15 pesos. But because there's a horizontal decision to sell it at that price, I think it leads to what? A cartel behavior, price fixing. Let me tell you that the proposed bill on competition and fair trade practices will definitely, this is criminal offense under the Act, and whoever does that, you can be arrested. In most countries, we've seen how bigger players like the British Airways being fined for fixing prices of other airlines. So they may do it now because there is no law in Ghana that criminalizes this practice, but the Ministry of Trade has assured Ghanaians that by the end of 2022, the Competition and Fair Trade Practices Bill will come. Now, coming back to the GOI, I think seriously, I don't see anything wrong about GOIL reducing its prices. There are even other OMCs that are selling below what GOIL is pricing. Because GOIL has been the industry benchmark, so anytime people are always pricing around the neighborhood of GOIL pricing. So as soon as GOIL brings its prices down, they have nothing to do than to also bring their prices down. And we are in a deregulated market. Government doesn't set prices. Of course, this is what is a deregulated market with some level of supervision. So you can't go up beyond
the threshold.
And neither can you also go below the minimum ban. And one thing that we need to understand in this country is that there is this phenomenon of chambers and associations, and they are always meeting to decide prices. This is wrong. When associations meet, they should not be discussing prices, because we are competing. So, for example, if all TV stations in Ghana were to meet and say, look, let's charge 5,000 cedis per minute advert. What it means is that you are stifling growth, because a particular TV station, due to its investment in technology, has a low cost of operation, so they can charge lower than that. And you give this result into a free riding. And so those ones who are benefiting from it will not even invest in development.
But the AOMC's point was that because GOIL government has majority shares in GOIL, and I'd like to mention the percentage shares. Government of Ghana owns 34.23%. SNIT owns 25%, and then BOST owns 20.03%. That's all government. And their point to Matthew Poku Prempeh Honorable was that, look, you are interfering. You have said deregulation. You're supposed to sit back and let us determine, but you're interfering. And then GOIL says, but why? We're quite independent. Why do you want to say government is determining what we do? And that actually led to the withdrawal. Yes,
and I think GOIL has every right to withdraw from it. There is no law in the country that compels GOIL to join association. Freedom of association. And for the OMCs, they feel that like when cartels meet and somebody leaves the market, the cartel group, there's a feeling that the one who has left the group is going to price low, and that will weaken the cartels. So if the OMC do not see themselves as a cartel group, then they shouldn't be worried about GOIL leaving the group, because this is it's a deregulated market. GOIL can even decide to sell its products low. Now, some are even selling, I think, 6.35 or so, yes. And GOIL is even above 6.50. So what is the issue? Is it because GOIL has the bigger, yes, and so GOIL has the market power, yes, but GOIL alone cannot influence. Price. There are other competitors, even those who are even selling below 6.50. They are also causing the bigger one to also lower their prices. Recently, we saw Total PLC also lowering their premium fuel. Currently, the V-Power, for example, shares one is very high, which goes above 7.0, but the Total's one is for 6.something, 6.9 or so. These are all competition. We are in a competitive environment, so I don't think that people should bastardize GOIL for, bringing their prices down. And of course, GOIL is a limited liability company. It's a PLC, okay? And whatever they do, they have a board, they have an annual general approved. So if at the end of the day, the MDs, the management are supposed to return profit to what? The shareholders. And if shareholders sees that the company is making losses, they have every right to what? Kick the managers away from, and also, criticize the decision. So long as GOIL is operating at a profitable, you know that even by reducing your prices, you can even sell more volumes and make more profit than keeping your prices there. And this is a free market, so I don't think there's anything wrong with GOIL lowering its prices. And OMCs have no case against, should not have any case against GOIL.
I think
you still want to make some
the fear is that in competition there is cooperation. So that is why the OMCs are making this particular noise. If GOIL reduce their margins to a certain point that probably, let's say, even they are breaking even. If something happens to GOIL, it will have a major impact on all the other operators in the country. And GOIL being part of the OMCs also give them some form of major recognition, because GOIL is the route that OMCs use to get to government. So the route that you use to get to government has now disassociated themselves from your association. It means that
you're purely private sector now.
Yes. And which becomes a challenge. And that's why we're saying that then it's going to have an impact on the deregulation. So if something should happen for all the entities to sit down, when they go, they will see two players, GOIL versus the rest. Probably that is why they don't want it that way. In terms of the pricing, we all know that probably this gives me an indication that the margins that the oil companies were charging were a little bit high for GOIL to be able to step it down.
Really down within such a
short period. And probably that is why we are seeing that they are afraid that it's going to also affect their projections as different entities. So they need GOIL to still come back to the association so that they can find a way to cooperate and do some things through them to government. So,
but for both of you, has deregulation since 2015 till now, has it really served its purpose?
The issue was with the subsidy, and we've removed the subsidy.
Yes.
But now we've built it up with other taxes and levies.
Yes.
So I don't see the difference for me.
Yeah. I think from economic points of view, deregulation has resulted in competition in the market, though there are some fees and charges that are all form part of the petroleum pricing arrangement, that those regulatory margins, for me, that is something that we may have to talk about it, that some of these things are kind of irrelevant, and they are kind of driving the prices of crude oil up. But I would say that deregulation has seen OMCs competing on prices and even on quality. Now, GOIL is also selling to its customers a higher octane fuel, which others are not selling. If in the past, if all OMCs, if prices were uniform across everywhere, there's no need for you to invest in your product and increase your octane level, knowing that that one is going to cost you more. So I think that deregulation has resulted in competition, and consumers are getting advantage of the deregulation, because now you can choose where to buy your fuel, because you go there, you look at the price, you say, look, I'm going to fill a 50-liter car, and if I go here, I'm going to save about 50 Ghana cedis. Why not go there and save 50 Ghana cedis than to go to this particular OMC and pay more? These are all as a result of deregulation. And I think that we should let deregulation stay. with also the caveat that the regulator needs to also be punishing business, the OMC that are engaging in cartels and price fixings and shadow pricing in the system. What the shadow pricing happens is that under the rule, if you are company A, all your prices across the country should be uniform. But sometimes if I'm in a particular enclave, market zone where I'm facing competition, I can reduce my price here, but where I'm not facing competition, I keep the prices high. And that is also against the, and I think NPA need to do more. Seriously, I don't see them doing more.
That's very true, because there are certain fuel companies I buy from.
Yes.
I see that in certain areas the prices are pretty low. The same brand name, but you go to another place and the price is way up there.
And another thing that we also are the OMCs dispensing the right volume. That is also, and that requires the GSA and the MPA to be doing regular surveillance, because once there's competition, some of them may also decide to lower their prices, but they also cut down the volume. And this is happening. And currently, the sanction for those practices are not punitive enough. So you can do it, and then they will charge you 5,000 Ghana cedis.
But when was the last time did you hear that
somebody has even been charged?
Yes.
When?
So there's no incentives for people to do right. I mean, elsewhere, once you are caught, they will look at your previous year profit margin and the percentage of it, and then once you pay that fine, you will never go back to sin. Like Christ said, go and sin no more.
Let me draw one.
Just a quick one, because Nixon has been on Zoom for quite some time. Nixon, if you're there, we're discussing currently issues relating to deregulation. And since you and I buy fuel all the time, when prices go down, we're excited.
Well, I'm enjoying the conversation of our panelists. And clearly, I would say that deregulation should be supported, even though there are teething issues that need to be addressed. But on a whole, I would say that from competition-wise, it has been fruitful. However, from the perspective of the regulator, there is the need for the game to be stepped up, because the issue about whether the actual volume has been dispensed is also an issue. And I believe that many consumers will share similar thoughts with me. You go to a same brand, but different outlets, and you can tell that the prices are different. And that is not a good practice for deregulation. But on the whole, I would say that it's been fruitful. On the point of goal, don't forget that government is majority shareholder. And therefore, if government decides to act through its representatives, whether SNET, whether BOST, GOL will have to act. And GOL is a bigger influence on the market, even though some will say that Total and Shell are also bigger players. Agreed. But any decision, any step GOL takes is actually also considered as very critical, and therefore the other competition or competitors also follow suit. So on a whole, I would say that deregulation has been worthwhile, but on the regulator perspective, we need to see more action so that we will see an improvement from that end.
Let me share one angle with the deregulation where I think that we have to watch. Anytime the price is going to be increased, it's done very fast.
Yeah.
When it has to be reduced. It does not reflect, the rate is not the same. It can take 24 hours to see some of the OMCs reducing their price. But if they say the world market gives an indication that it has to go up, they are finished 2%, there and then, you see it happening. So in that case, we have to watch, I'm sure with the NPA must watch how prices reflect at the board, especially when we see that there is a reduction. You know, during the year, there will be some major point where fuel price came down, that we were anticipating that it should be reduced.
Yeah, and then the taxes issues always come up.
And then all of a sudden we said, oh, we are not going to reduce it, we are going to maintain.
Because of the taxes that are built in.
Something. I mean, if you say that is the market, let the market determine the price. And when it reflects that today we know that it must reduce, if the rule is 24 hours, the change should be there. Let all ensure that it's 24 hours. You'll be surprised. Sometimes in Accra, it will change very fast. But you go to my hometown in Esu, such as Dumasi, that long distance, Ejura, you drive there and you see that you say, oh, we are waiting for Accra. Yes. So when it's like that, it affects customers.
Gentlemen, we have about 19 minutes to go, and we still have many topics we haven't touched. Securities and Exchange Commission on Ponzi scheme, I think, was one area that both of you said. I'm not sure about Nixon, if you also picked Securities and Exchange Commission on Ponzi schemes. But gentlemen, go ahead with what you want to say relating to Ponzi schemes.
I think
looks like many people have been bitten but still haven't learned a lot.
The desire for mankind to get higher interest or returns is still there. And I don't know what normally happens, how people are able to convince others that you'll be able to get instant returns of, say, 40%, 50%, 70%, especially using the pyramid form of investment. So I noticed in the year, that was what people were saying. Bring somebody. Yeah. They bring 500, like the Susu, and then by the time they form a pyramid, the one on top will get all the money and the other. So it happened, and we were happy to see SEC coming in with information to the public that we must desist from that act. We have not even finished with men's gold and its matters. And these things are happening. What it means is that the financial education hasn't gotten up with a lot of us, which we need to make sure that we educate people the more.
Maybe you should quickly use this opportunity to do a bit of education, gentlemen. I learned from one economist that any scheme that is promising you above treasury bill rate so high that it's not close is something you should really suspect. That's correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so why are people still looking for more than that?
Okay, I would say that in Ghana here, there's been this overridden appetite for people to become rich overnight. That is why you realize that even Dr. Emmanuel Akwete said that returns in joining political party exceeds any form of business investing in Ghana. So people are going to politics and becoming rich overnight. And those who can't get that access will also have to find other alternatives to be able to compete. But they also want to go and live in East Legon and live in a nice neighborhood. And so that kind of appetite is there. Everybody wants to become rich overnight. And sometimes you get your best friend coming to tell you that, look, Odelia, I saw this guy making this money from this scheme. Recently, the BOG or the SEC issued a release about this world remit. And yet, on our WhatsApp platform, you still see people bombarding us world remit. When Men's Gold came, BOG issued a release about Men's Gold. And yet, we saw people who were still bastardizing the BOG until finally it crumbled.
Apia, I've always said that, look, when I was young, we constantly got road safety education. I'm sure you will remember, crossing the road can be very dangerous. First, look left, right, then left again before crossing. I was like 6 years. It's still in my hair. Looks like financial literacy education is virtually non-existent if it's not coming from media houses that are consistently engaging people. The institutions that are supposed to do this literacy education probably are not pushing enough, because if they really are, then we should be at a better place than we currently are.
I think from SEC perspective, I hold a license, Ghana Stock Exchange license. So what I know is that there's 1 month in October normally that they use for such education. What it means is that that 1 month is not enough. It must be a year-long plan with money backed by it to send people across. So,
what sort of education is done? Is this education broken down, for example, Doctor, to various local languages and consistently in your face?
That is what is lacking. But mostly for us, as we teach the finance, we tell people, one, if you are going to invest, ask for the license of the company. Are they licensed by Securities and Exchange Commission or any regulator? Who regulates their activity? You need to see the license. In the past, it was very difficult to verify, but now there are short codes that you can send and then see whether that company is being regulated by Bank of Ghana or by SEC to know. And then also the owners behind the business.
Who are they?
You need to know. They say sometimes the owner can be wearing canvas. Smart. So you need to know. And the way they live their life. Now, like the Ponzi scheme, we have seen some in Ghana. People were living with big men and the rest is the same. If you watch Charles Ponzi, that's the movie. That's how everything works. So you need to find out how. And then the most important thing is you must ask, the money that I'm giving to you, what are you going to use it for?
To generate
that 40%, 70% you say you are going to give to me. So that's where, in the men's gold case, he used a commodity, say gold. So something should let you know that, why is he the only person doing this business to be able to give me 60% or this above the treasury bill rate? So these are some of the things probably you need to watch, and also make sure that if you do the investment properly, you get the proper certificate in your hands, well documented, signed. Probably, if I advise you, don't pay cash. Use a bank transaction where you can have evidence. You have to find your way to go to court. You need to prove evidence that you are giving your money to that company or individual. So these are the things that we need to do. And as you said, we need to break it down to various languages. Chi, Ewe, Dagomba, Dagati, and the rest, Frafra, for people to be able to understand.
Yeah, thank you, Doc. I also think that we need to involve the national security in terms of gathering data on Ponzi schemes. Because national security, they are everywhere in the informal sector, in the formal sector. So as soon as they pick any such news, it's quickly passed on to the SEC, BOG, and the banks. And then also, there should be a platform for radio stations. I mean, currently, in some countries, I know that there is a lot of money for this financial inclusion education. Mm-hmm. I know, for example, in India, the monies that are the bank that have not been claimed, currently the law says that the banks are supposed to transfer the money to the Bank of Ghana. In most countries, their central bank uses portion of the money to do financial literacy education. And that is where Bank of Ghana is lacking. If BOG were to invest a lot of resources in financial literacy education, so that some of the money will come to multimedia, and then they can also monitor the number of times you do your advert. And even when you call mobile money, when you call somebody, for example, on the ringing tone, there must also be something there that if anybody promises you anything above this, don't. If you need any information, call this hotline. These are some of the things that we need to have in the country. And also, even I don't think textbook education helps, because if you look at the people who have become victim to this, some of them are PhD holders, Professor Emeritus. So textbook education may not.
security.
That's where I wanted to
Everybody.
go. Everybody.
Yes. Were you part of?
No. The BI people, most of them were even affected. And when it came to collecting the money, they were able to use some takashi to get here.
We have 10 minutes. Nixon, you're on. Share with us your last topic for the day so that they in studio here will also share their last topic. We've spoken about the Security and Exchange Commission on Ponzi schemes and how they are working with IOCO to clamp down on some people who are not behaving properly.
It's something that I'm so interested in the sense that you would be surprised to find out well-educated Ghanaian who is so.
Okay. Looks like the connection is bad from Nixon's side. We're done with Securities and Exchange Commission. Any last topics for two of you?
I mean, for me, I'll pick the no ID, no Momo SIM card registration.
Yeah.
I mean, as a country where we have got into, we need to be able to identify ourselves. And the ID systems from using the Ghana card point of view and this Momo registration going on will help us to be able to know who we are. I'm sure this has come about because of the Ghana card, because now we want to use that particular number as a unique number for all of us. So that is why this is very, very important. It will reduce the fraudulent activities, especially in the digital space, especially Momo. People will call you, you have this, bring this, and all of that. And now you'll be able to track a lot of people. And then it's also going to solve the issue that whether it's very true that MTN has the number of subscribers they are saying they have, or Vodafone, or Tigo. Because if you look at MTN, for instance, now there's a freeze on they adding more numbers. Because the issue is that the 024 finish 055, so they say no, you cannot add on. So it's going to freeze some space. If we see that most of the numbers don't have owners, then you delete them, and then we'll fix them back. So it's going to help us to know. Because the mobile numbers, according to the finance minister, 90 million subscribers, and which we need to find a way to. It's not true. Sanitize it, because 90 million out of 30 million people is too high.
People have complained about the rate of registration in relation to the Ghana card registration and whether the March deadline for syncing your mobile number with your Ghana card number will actually be done. Would we be able to meet the deadline that we're looking at?
For me, sitting here, I think we can meet it if the supply side and the demand side are willing. The supply side being the telecos and the demand side being the subscribers. Look at how long, when we are doing voter registration, we're able to do so relatively within 2 weeks. I think the last one was the longest run because of the COVID time. And so I think that if you are serious and you want to register your SIM card, I think the March deadline is possible for everybody to meet. However, we also need to understand that there may be some legitimate challenges that people may not be able to, because some areas you may need to travel to a longer distance to be able to get to a nearest registration point, and those things need to be looked at. So I think data helps a lot. I mean, the data in terms of the nearest proximity and also the number of possible subscribers, all those things can help the NCA, the Ministry of Communication, the telecos to be able to make an important and intelligent decision on the way forward. But I know that the 30th deadline could possibly be extended. This is not the first time. In 2011, I think it was extended. But at least when you are starting, you need to give a cutoff.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for doing justice to the big topics that we discussed we did several stories on for 2021. I'm so sure that we'll meet again by the close of 2022 to have the big discussions again. But e-levy was really critical to all the panelists who came in to have this discussion. I had Derek on Zoom, who is a telecoms consultant. I had Nixon Yeboah also on Zoom, who is an editor with the Joy Business team, Apia Adumakon with CAT International, and Dr. William Pepra with the Valley View University. My name is Odile Ntiamwa. Let's meet again by close of 2022, God willing.